everyone, and happy Friday the 13th. My name is Pristine Decay, welcoming you to the fabulous Velveteen Coffin here on the inaugural episode of the Pristine Decay Show. On tonight's episode, we will be reviewing and spoiling Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, the long-awaited sequel. So sit back, relax, and let me be your official guide into the afterlife of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. But first, it wouldn't be an official movie review without my handbook for the recently deceased, and Bob! Thank you so much for being here with me today, Bob. Anyway, let's get right into it, shall we? Now, it goes without saying that this would not have been a proper sequel without Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara. There's just no way I wouldn't have watched it. I would have said garbage and never seen it. Thank God they were back for part 2. Now, if you know me like you think you do, then you would understand my hype and obsession with having a sequel. When they said that we were waiting an eternity for this, they were not kidding. I will say right now that Beetlejuice Beetlejuice was indeed worth the wait. So I have to say this as somebody who is as obsessed with Beetlejuice as I am. I was very nervous. I was very scared. I said, Lord, Dark Lord, please don't let them take my movie and turn it into some hokey, commercial bullshit, similarly to how I feel about Hocus Pocus 2. It was great seeing them all again, but the movie itself just didn't do it for me. However, in this sequel, I have to say, everything felt pretty authentic. I was taken back straight to 1988. They really kept true to the original roots. The storyline, as if we just never left, it picked up where it dropped off practically. And everybody's just, older now. They're living their lives. It's more modern. We're here in present day. And it's just incredible to see these iconic characters back, So let me talk about the characters. Let's just start with Beetlejuice himself. Michael Keaton delivered an outstanding performance, one that I have not seen from him in quite a long time. And I'm so happy to see him back in the stapled black and white striped suit that he's known for. You can just tell that Michael Keaton had such a great time filming the sequel. He was just as unhinged and deranged as you remember him, and he kept true to his character. No part of him seemed hokey or commercial to me at all, and I thank the Dark Lord for that. Next up, we have Winona Ryder as Lydia Dietz. She can do no wrong in my eyes. Winona Ryder as Lydia, perfect casting. Winona Ryder as Lydia in Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, phenomenal. I was just so happy to see our girl again. Oh, and Catherine O'Hara, Delia. She was so good. In fact, I might think that Catherine O'Hara stole the show a little bit for me. And of course, we have new characters with such iconic actors like Monica Bellucci, Justin Theroux, Jenna Ortega, and Willem Dafoe. What a lineup! So now let's talk about how I feel. I feel like in this sequel, Beetlejuice himself was a little reserved. In fact, he was nice. I remember him being this ghost, tyrant, pervert, demon who you were a little afraid of. You were like, what is going on with this dude? But in this sequel, he seemed to be nicer, more likable. And I don't blame that on Michael Keaton's age. I think it was necessary for the writing of this script because enter badass Dolores, Monica Bellucci's character. She was so good. First of all, the dress, ma'am, I need it. That scene where she bursts out of that box and starts stapling herself together, classic. I loved it, okay? And Miss Jenna Ortega as Astrid, I have to say, actually very phenomenal. At first, I was a little hesitant. I didn't know what to expect because we all know her for playing Wednesday, and I did not want to see Wednesday Addams in Jenna Ortega's character. And I have to tell you, I did not see it once. And in fact, Astrid is an entirely well-rounded character. She must have studied for this part day in and day out because believable, 100% believable as Lydia's daughter. Miss Catherine O'Hara, okay, Another person I thought, okay, she's going to bring Moira Rose into this. She did not. In fact, there was one word she said that was a little bit of a Moira-ism, if you will. And I feel like that was just a nod, a little bit of an homage to Schitt's Creek, and I loved it. But the rest of the time, she was 100% Delia and really, again, stole the show for me. Justin Theroux, oh, what a douchebag. I'm just kidding. His character, I should say. He delivered this performance in a way that I knew I wasn't going to like him from the previews, and I definitely didn't like him from the sequel. And then there's Willem Dafoe, a very unlikable detective saying, keep it real, keep it real. I don't know if I really understood his character or what he was all about. He was all right. I think he was, he was cool looking, but I don't think there was enough about him. I don't know if he was 100% necessary. Now, Danny DeVito, 100% necessary. He played that janitor. They say there are no small roles, just small actors. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say this about Danny DeVito. But I will tell you, his role in this film was so good. The grittiness, the nastiness, the Drano. Oh, so good. And of course, we have our iconic sandworm, whom I'm a little disappointed by because I remember in the original he was so like jagged and angular, and in this one he seemed more softer and rounded. And maybe that's just through years of, burrowing yourself in sand. And of course, there's Bob, the real star of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. How are you doing, Bobby? Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Oh, I know. I know. When I saw him, I thought to myself, there's something up with this character. And then when you saw the parents, I was like, what? Oh, Bob. The whole film gives you this very amazing feel that you are right there with them again. And it's just so cool to see how everything is developed. I don't know if I ever necessarily saw Lydia Dietz becoming a mother myself, but I understand it for the storyline and I get it. This movie seems to be polarizing with reviews. The majority of the people are saying that they love it, and these are real juice heads, such as myself. And then there are people who dislike the movie, and they're wrong. In fact, you can go straight to fucking hell. But anyway, there's twists and turns around every corner. In fact, some of the new characters you love, some of them you hate. And the baby. Oh, the baby. I'm not even going to get into it. But what can I say about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice? You know what? Let's go to an expert. Everyone, please welcome our first very special guest, filmmaker, drag icon, and fellow Beetlejuice fanatic, our cult leader, Peaches Christ.
Hey, Bob.
Peaches, hi. How are you?
Oh, hi. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just need to know, what did you think of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice?
Well, long story short, I really, really enjoyed it. Actually, I loved it. And I think that the caveat, I should say, is that I went in with low expectations or neutral expectations. I was optimistic, but as much as I love Tim Burton, and I do, there have been a lot of times in the last 20 years where I've walked out of a movie feeling kind of disappointed. So, I love Beetlejuice. I love Batman Returns. I love Ed Wood and Mars Attacks and I wore my Pee-wee's Big Adventure shirt. I love, Tim Burton, but I did not like Alice in Wonderland. There was a bunch I just did not like. And I was just like, oh God, what if this is like one of those? And it's this IP that I love, this, character that I adore, actually characters, because I love all the characters.
Absolutely.
But I really think he did a great job. It really was. It's different. It's different than the original, which it should be, but it's also got a lot of the same nostalgic magic that the first one did. What
I
did you
absolutely
think?
agree. No, same. It brought me back. It's nice to see the characters back on the big screen again all together and still being possessed and, lip syncing for their lives, literally. And new characters, I have to say, I feel like I've known them all along. And people are saying it's way over the top, it's unhinged, it's crazy. And I'm like, that's Beetlejuice. It's camp, darling. Get into it, you know?
Totally. I agree. That's what I loved about it was like, and if you're a cinema nerd or cult movie nerd, there is so much, in this movie that's going to go over the heads of an average audience. But like the Mario Bava, Black Sunday tribute with Beetlejuice speaking in Italian in the subtitles where they're doing a recreation of, Black Sunday. That whole character of his ex-wife, actually, that would be one of the critiques I have, which is that that character is so fierce and gets such fucking great setup, just a great, the whole way she's introduced is so wonderful and amazing and just brilliant. And then as she blasts her way through that movie looking for Beetlejuice, it is fucking runway level goth fierceness for the ages, the look, all of it. And then the critique I would have is like her resolution really isn't that satisfying.
Agreed.
she
I
deserved
agree.
she deserved more of a third act, I think,
For sure. I
Yeah.
100% agree. Were there any characters that were presented in the sequel that you really particularly didn't care for?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'll say this. It's funny. The one that I kind of felt didn't work that much, and it wasn't so much that he was a new character, but he kind of was the dead, um, uh, whatever his name is, Dietz, Lydia's father.
The
Um,
claymation version of him, oh, it was
yeah,
so bizarre.
that was the part. Well, the actor himself, I forget his name, but famous '80s actor from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Howard the Duck, and he was in all those movies, but he, of course, infamously, he basically got busted for being, a collector and distributor of child pornography, and obviously was canceled, and then has since passed away. I was surprised that they gave the character as much as they did. I get that it's in the world of Beetlejuice, but I just kind of felt like, especially, and I don't want to give too much away, but they have his dead body in the movie moving around with a voice, and I just kind of like the gag just didn't work that well for me. It was okay. I didn't love it. It was,
Yeah.
it was fine, but I don't know. I liked most of the new characters. I mean, the other one that I didn't really care for, but you're not supposed to like him, and I think he did a good job, is Lydia's, love interest. But you're not supposed to like him, so
Absolutely, absolutely. I knew immediately. I was like, "Oh, this guy, he's going to be such a
he's bad
jerk," and
news.
he was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then Willem Dafoe's character kind of I was so confused by him. Like he was funny, he was crazy, but like at the same time, a lot of the time I was like, I want more Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I want more
Kind of
Lydia.
unnecessary. I think the criticisms that I've heard that actually, make sense are too many storylines, too many characters. Okay, I can see that. However, it didn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. But when you really break it down from the filmmaker's point of view, yes, that critique is, I think it's on point. However, I just love the movie so much that I kind of am like, yeah, well, I was fine with it because, I really did enjoy the ride. And I thought the pacing and the insanity, it all worked for me. I really, really loved the practical effects. I thought them leaning into practical effects, actually returning to claymation for, things like the sandworms. The mix of CGI wasn't nearly as obnoxious as it usually would be in a new movie. They really allowed these practical effects people to build those disgusting gags on the actors. And I love the woman who has the javelin pole, through her neck, for no, you never get the stories of how they died. They just show you these disgusting, It seems like everyone who dies in the afterlife has died some horrible Final Destination style death, which is so ridiculous. No one dies of old age, or just a heart attack. But I loved it,
Yeah, you get to put the pieces together yourself and say,
Yeah.
oh, that person did this or this happened to that person. And yeah, and I really value your input on Beetlejuice, just because of your rich history in the filmmaking industry and your and Michael Varotti's movie reviews on Midnight Mass podcast. You have 93 episodes. That
I know
is
it's crazy.
that is insane. That's amazing. How did you guys get into that? And where are you going with all of this? I mean, like it is such an iconic show. Love listening to it. Love hearing and finding out about movies that I never knew I loved until you brought them up. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's Midnight Mass was the live event that I started in the 90s, back way back when I was just getting my start in drag. I was performing at a really punk rock weekly cabaret show here in San Francisco that was on Tuesdays, and it was more of a typical drag, format, lip syncs. Crazy. It was a crazy, crazy show. T Shack, is what we call it now. But it was my thing was that I wanted to do something related to my Peaches was always designed to celebrate movies in my mind. And so I wanted to create a show that was like Rocky Horror, but for different movies that I love. And so every week I would screen a movie at a movie theater, and we'd have this big elaborate pre-show, and then the audience would dress up, and it was so much fun. And that evolved over the years into being these bigger and bigger sketch comedy pieces, and then fully realized parody shows. Well, Beetlejuice is one of them, and it just grew. And when the pandemic happened and I couldn't do anything, I was actually the weekend that lockdown started in San Francisco, I was rehearsing with Jinx Monsoon and Ben de la Creme because we were going to do another version of our Drag Becomes Her show. And it was like, as you remember, as a performer, overnight, our calendars just were erased. They just, some people actually, they could continue working. They could continue working from home. They could continue, doing the things they did for work. But for others of us who depended on live gatherings and audiences, it all disappeared. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do? I should do a podcast. And actually, the first podcast I did was with Jinx and Delia, and we did a scripted radio show, and it was so much work. Because we were writing original plays, radio plays, then recording them in characters, then adding sound design. I mean, it just took hours and hours and hours, and we were all kind of like, "What are we doing?" And they went on off to make a movie version of their holiday show. And while they were making the movie, I called my friend Michael Varrotti and I said, "Hey, I need to do a podcast, but I need it to be a lot easier than this last one. I would like to just talk about cult movies. That's my happy place. But I'm so ridiculous. I knew I needed someone to counter me and my energy, and someone that was a little more, serious. I mean, but for lack of a better word, Michael's the straight man who just happens to be gay. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's the nature of our sort of duo. And so we started doing Midnight Mass, and we started recording episodes. And the thing that makes it different, I think, than other movie podcasts, because there are a million movie podcasts, is that really do focus on the cult of it. And why do people love this movie? What is it about this movie that we love so much? Why are we so connected? Or in some cases, why are you so connected? I mean, there are times where we do movies where I may not be a member of the cult, or Michael might not be, but we know there is a cult. And sometimes because of talking to these people and re-reviewing these movies, I find, oh my God, I am in this cult. I just didn't know I was in this cult. So it's been a total pleasure. I mean, do we make money off the podcast? No. Do we love doing it? And it's worth the work and the time that we put into it? Absolutely. And the blessing of it, as far as you asked, where's it going to go from here? What's been really nice is it went from being a live event I started in the 90s to a podcast because of the pandemic to now the podcast is generating its own live events, where the podcast was just asked to be at the Academy Museum, with Cassandra Peterson. So it's that sort of thing where it's like, wait, we're now back to doing live events, but it's through the podcast. So that's pretty cool.
That is incredible, and thank you for sharing. Do you have any plans to review Beetlejuice on Midnight Mass?
It's on a very, very, very long list. And basically, every movie that I've ever celebrated or done a parody show to or a tribute to is on that list. So you can imagine. And what it's funny for me is I actually just talked about this the other day because we have an episode that's coming out soon that's one of those mothers of all cult movies. And I said to Michael, like, isn't it funny that our show started and we didn't immediately dive in and do, Showgirls or Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, all the movies that you would think that I would do right away because those are the movies I screened so much. I think part of the issue for me is some of them are so big in my mind. They are so monumental that I almost find it hard to tackle it in a podcast. So it's easier for me to do films that maybe I know less or have less of a place for me personally historically. But like, actually, this is a total spoiler, but we have Mommy Dearest coming out soon. And that was one that was like, how are we going to do Mommy Dear? I think we've done a good job, but it's just so big in my mind. And Beetlejuice in many ways is like that. We have done Ed Wood and we have done Batman Returns. So it's not that we haven't done Tim, but funnily enough, I think the two that to me would be the biggest cult movies of his in my mind that are the most cult would be Beetlejuice and I think Edward Scissorhands. I think those
Oh,
two, because those two characters came to embody, almost like they almost became goth heroes to entire generations of people.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we look up to these characters and we uh, in ways imitate these characters and have them a part of our daily lives. I mean, the room I'm in right now is also known as the Beetlejuice room. I mean, it's insane. Um, now,
Did you get the
speaking
Beetlejuice
of,
popcorn bucket?
do I have a Beetlejuice popcorn bucket? I have this
Oh,
Beetlejuice popcorn bucket,
wow. She has the recently deceased book that's the popcorn box, which is you
I
got them
have
all.
this popcorn bucket,
Oh my God.
and this popcorn
Wow.
bucket.
She has them all. That's amazing. I'm impressed.
I waited in lines. I bribed people. I spanked people. No, I made
Where are
sure I
you
got my
located,
bucket.
by the way?
I'm located on the East Coast in Virginia Beach.
Oh, Virginia Beach. Wow. I
Yeah.
I grew up in Maryland and I spent all my summers in Ocean City, Maryland. So
Oh
uh
yeah.
they have a similar Virginia Beach and Ocean City have a similar East Coast beach town trashiness to them that,
Oh,
we
fully,
we could connect
fully.
over. Yeah.
I so I still have yet to visit Maryland, but then again, the people I know who's from there tell me why, and I said, well, there's a lot going on there. I need to visit, and it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
on my
yeah.
bucket list, on my Beetlejuice bucket list, and also my last little love,
Oh,
Shrunken Head Cup.
yeah. That's amazing. You've really got it all.
I I need to stop. It's unhealthy, and I'm broke because of it. Now, speaking of these iconic movies, you created quite the cult classic yourself, all about evil. And can we talk about it? Because, I mean, this film is iconic. You have Natasha Lyonne, you have the Mistress of the Darkness herself, Miss Elvira. Where did the idea for this film come from? And did you think, I mean, when you were doing this, or even before, pre-production, you're writing a script, what what took over you to make such an iconic film?
Well, honestly, I'll say that no, I never imagined. I mean, I was such a even when I started doing drag and the stuff that I liked, it was like I was so into, ultra punk rock, underground, weird shit that like when I became Peaches Christ and sort of, started to really put myself out there as this thing, I just assumed that doors were shutting all around me to future possibilities, which in many ways is kind of funny and might be in a sense why it was good. Or at least why it was pure, because it was pre-drag race. It was pre people thinking, at least in my community, people thinking that this is how they were going to make a living. And so it was more about like, well, let's fucking do whatever we want and whatever's going to be interesting. And that was the sort of my approach to filmmaking. And so I was making these ridiculous short films. I mean, so ridiculous, no budget, stupid short films, but I would screen them because I had an audience of hundreds of people who were coming to my midnight movie shows, and I could screen my own movies to this audience who appreciated them. But I didn't think they'd ever get out of the bubble of San Francisco. And one of those movies was a short film called Grindhouse, which was about a woman who, I mean, it was all about evil. I mean, it is all about evil. It's just, it was a short version, and it was called Grindhouse, and it was just sort of the concept of this idea of this woman who inherits this old movie theater. And as I was doing these things and film programmers started to discover these stupid movies, they were programming them at real film festivals. I was like, what is happening? And so the movies started to get out into the world, and Grindhouse especially started to get, noticed a lot, because the other ones were like drag shorts where we stole all the music and we were parodying, I was doing hybrids of parodies of, Freddie, Krueger and Michael Myers and Baby Jane or Mommy Dearest. Um, but Grindhouse was a really, wholly a kind of original idea, and it had original music. And so my friend Darren Stein, who wrote and directed a film called Jawbreaker, was like the most Hollywood friend I had. Like he'd made a real movie starring real movie stars, and he hung out with celebrities. But Darren's one of us. Like, even though he was Hollywood, he really loved punk rock shit, and he totally could hang with me and my friends in San Francisco, no problem. But it was Darren who was like, you should turn this one into a feature, and I want to produce it. You should write it. So I have to credit Darren with kind of, one, believing in me and giving me that sort of validation, and two, actually, keeping his word. I did write a script and Darren did produce the movie. So, that was there's some steps in between, obviously, but it was really, I have to give a lot of credit to Darren. And then also, as crazy as this sounds, in 2007, Mark Cuban came along, the billionaire, and he made a TV show for me, about me, that was a midnight mass. It was a televised midnight mass series on his HDNet channel. And I think the 1-2 punch of having a friend like Darren say, I want to produce your movie, and a billionaire funding a show, a TV show for me, for his network. Ironically, Darren and I did go to Mark with the All About Evil script and asked him to pay for the movie, and he did not. But
His
he
loss.
did help. He did help distribute it, though. So, it was a really weird series of things that like started to happen, where I was like, oh, you mean like I could do bigger shit? It was nice. But it wasn't something I expected or kind of set out to do. However, I will say that my entire life or career, or whatever you'd call it, has always been a series of, oh, I've never done that, so let's do that. Oh, I've never seen a drag queen do this. Okay, let's see if we can do this. It's always been that kind of thing, whether it's make a movie or do it, starting to do shows at symphony halls with giant symphony orchestras, or doing, an immersive haunted attraction in a historic building. That's totally the kind of shit that excites me. I probably have an attention issue. I think I probably am undiagnosed with some stuff, because I really have trouble focusing. So I'm better at juggling. I'm better at doing a lot of crazy shit all at the same time. And kind of, I like chaos.
I mean, I mean this as a compliment, and it shows. I mean, the fact that you have all these iconic shows and ideas and looks. I mean, one look in particular that I love and I obsess over of yours is when you did the Cenobite look with
Oh yeah.
the
The flayed
boobies.
tits. Yeah.
Yes, that's it's so good. And I just love Peaches Christ, and I love um your hosting abilities, just how smoothly you just make a show run, as chaotic as you say they are, and how well you can just get it together. It's I myself need help in that department. You say undiagnosed, I think myself, I may have some
Well,
ADHD or
I
something.
think I do, and I think that well, one thing about the chaos and sort of embracing it is that we never had the budget or the time to do things flawlessly. So I just always embraced kind of the fact that we were always going to be rough around the edges. And I do have performer friends who are flawless. Like Coco Peru is flawless, and I actually I always worry for her when she comes to do one of my shows because she's such a professional and she's so good. But I have to always remind her, like, you're doing a Peaches Christ show. That means you have to let go, and things will go wrong, and there's a chance the set might fall on your head, and if that happens, what part of the fun of doing a Peaches Christ show is figuring out how to just roll with it. But I like that kind of thing. I partly because I didn't have a choice. So I had to like our shows were so fucked up. They were so and I don't mean in a good way. I mean like one year I was electrocuted on stage, like completely amateur, dangerous, ridiculous. And that in a way has benefited me because it's taught me how to embrace the show must go on. And no matter what, as long as I'm having fun and the audience is having fun, it's all going to be okay. So I would say to you, as far as where you might want some advice, and any younger person who's doing this work, just keep doing it. That was the only way that I got better was just to keep doing it. Whatever you want to get better at, you just have to show up and do it. And I think a lot of times that's like the hardest part is just taking the action to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, trial and error and
Yeah.
learning from experience and persevering and just doing what you want and saying, fuck you, I'm gonna do it. Like
Yeah.
I can only aspire to to these incredible things that you have accomplished. And I have to ask, okay, because it's not every day that you talk to Peaches Christ, okay? I have to
Uh-huh.
ask, where when, who, what, where, when, why? Like, how did Peaches Christ come about? I know you said filmmaking, sorry, cult classic films have always been a part of the fabric of Peaches Christ. But when you first, you know, put on that lipstick
Hmm.
or heels or whatever it was, and you said, "Oh," and that spark happened, what was going through your mind? And you know, tell me a little bit about how you started out.
Well, I mean, it is something that I now can look at and go like, oh yeah, this fusion with a love of cinema has always been there. For one, I was always that kid for as long as my parents can remember because I've had to go and ask them, was I always like this? And I was a first child, so I had to go to my parents. Like my siblings were younger than me, but as far as any of my family can remember, I was always a kid who wanted to be on stage, who wanted to be making movies, loved theater, loved dressing up. If there was a little play, I wanted to be the genie. I wanted to wear the most makeup. I was always friends with more girls than boys. I definitely have always been a non-binary type of sissy person
Yes.
and very very queer, without even trying to hide it. I just couldn't hide it. I just was what I was, and also totally spooky, like completely, attracted to things that were macabre or haunted or Halloween or any of that. So they say that I was just kind of born that way. And now when I look back on my sort of my drag, introduction, I'm like, oh, it was three people. It was the holy triumvirate of growing up with Elvira and worshiping Elvira, who is now officially my drag mother because I bullied her into admitting it. So
Yes.
I mean, she had to say yes. And and then growing up in Maryland and discovering John Waters and Divine, Divine was like this huge explosion of possibilities in my brain. And shortly after that, going to my first screening of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So those three things, Elvira, Divine, and Frankenfurter, they're my Catholic holy trilogy of drag, inspiration. And then when I was in college and I was dressing very kind of queer at Penn State and hadn't started yet doing drag, but was looking like a club kid going to class with barrettes in my hair and lipstick and, earrings and totally like getting bashed. I mean, literally, and it was worth it, because I loved expressing myself. And my friends were also radical and weird and queer. And, we liked antagonizing straight, boring, awful people, so, um, it wasn't so much drag as it was gender fucking and club kid culture. That was my first real taste for it, and I loved it. I loved putting a look together and going out to a party. But the first time I did drag was for a movie. It was for my senior thesis film, which was Jizz Mopper, and I was Peaches in the movie. And
Oh,
it's on film. My first time in drag is forever captured on 16 millimeter film, and and that so I really am a cult movie queen. I was born on screen. I was, inspired by the people that I saw on screen. So it is very much infused. That's why for me, whether I'm doing Terror Vault or something Peaches Christ, Terror Vault is my haunted house, which is really more immersive theater. Or I'm making a movie. It's all like comes from the same place. It's all the same stuff.
I was going to ask where the name Peaches Christ came from. So that's incredible. You kind of answered my next question. Where,
Yeah.
like, that's where it came from? Was that film?
No, actually,
Oh,
her name in the movie is Peaches Nevada because when I wanted to be Peaches Christ, the poor cinematographer who was so great, and he was a straight guy and he was lovely and he was so Christian that like for him to make, and he was trying to support me and support my vision, and here I have him shooting in the most pornographic store. I mean, it was so raunchy. Literally, we'd go in there and the smell of cum in that arcade was just intense. We were shooting at a real giant adult bookstore emporium off a highway in central Pennsylvania. We had to drive to Harrisburg from Penn State. It was a nightmare. And when I told him that I was going to be Peaches Christ, he was like, "Look, I'm doing all of this. But I just must beg you. Can you just call yourself something else?" And I said yes. And
oh,
so if you see the movie, and the only place you can really see it is on my Patreon. If you join the Patreon at a certain level, you can actually watch Jizz Mopper. It's terrible drag. It's booger drag. It's me not knowing how to do drag, and but it's me, and I'm a baby, and I was clearly having fun, and yeah, it was hard, but it was when I got on the plane to go to San Francisco that I was like, and now I'm Peaches Christ. And so when I landed in San Francisco, I was Peaches Christ, and all of that comes from my obsession with my Catholic upbringing, both my anger with the church, but also at one point I thought I might be a priest. You know what I mean? I was a kid who loved the church. I loved religion. I loved Jesus. I loved all of this stuff. So I'm really angry about the ways in which it was designed and used to hurt me, as I started to, you know, figure out my identity. And then the older I got, I could see, oh, look at how it's been used to hurt a lot of people and to keep women, as second class citizens, and to control people's bodies and to create war and, protect pedophile. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I wanted to do something antagonistic, like call myself Peaches Christ. It was a middle finger to my Catholic upbringing. And, funnily enough, I don't see it that way anymore. It's just so normal for me. I forget that it's so offensive to some people. And then I get protested.
that is so fascinating. And thank you for sharing that with me. I had no
Yeah.
idea, and but I can also relate. And but here you are today, this super successful, super famous drag queen slash filmmaker slash cult leader that we know as Peaches Christ. So hey, yeah, what doesn't kill us makes us fierce.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, I mean, I don't think of myself as I think of myself as successful in so much as I never could have imagined that this character or this passion or this hobby or this fun thing that I was doing with my friends would be something that I'm still doing to this day. I'm 50 years old and here I am still playing dress up and being sacrilegious and rolling around in fake blood. And I just couldn't be happier. I know I'm nowhere near as wealthy or successful as my drag children are. I haven't had the benefit of a major television show, but I'll tell you, as a Gen Xer who grew up the way that I grew up in the world that I grew up in drag, I wouldn't change it for anything because and not to say that there's anything wrong with the way that my younger friends, especially the friends who've been on the TV show, and we all know what TV show I'm talking about. I don't begrudge them anything. I think that experience probably in its own way is very fun and very exciting and really a thrill. But I like that I came from a world where we had to do it on our own. Like we really had to figure it out on our own. There was no hand holding. And even though I'm not rich, I know how to produce. I know how to make shit, because of the way that I had to kind of come up in the world. So I'm grateful for it all.
I I love to hear that because I think I came up the same way. There wasn't a YouTube tutorial. There wasn't
Right.
at the time of that show coming out, I think I was like, gosh, a teenager, like a young teenager, and I had already been doing some gigs underage. Nobody knew. I'm not going to say
That's like
where.
that's like Jinx as well. She got started as a teenager. Like so you were like one of those people who you knew you had to do this thing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the club owner was even said, if I have one of your parents give me permission that you can be here, then you can be here. And I went to my mom and I was like, please. And I had it under because I didn't want to come out just yet. So I told my mother, I was like, it's this goth club and there's some performative art and just, they're gonna ask you if I can be there. Just please say yes. And she was like, well, of course. And so she went up and she talked to the
That's
club owner and
amazing.
she
In
was
Virginia Beach?
Oh no, I Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow. Although
Yes.
I would guess Louisville in some ways is more metropolitan when it comes because isn't the Actors Theater there? I mean, there must be a pretty big queer scene actually.
Oh yeah. And it's
Yeah,
so funny to see how Louisville itself has um shifted from when I was a kid to now an adult who's
right.
also removed from it. I can see it from the outside. Your next big show is Idol Worship with Mink Stole in Palm Springs on November 1st and 2nd. Where is it going to be held? What's it about? What's going on? Tell us what to expect.
Well, Mink Stole, of course, is the cult film icon who actually has appeared in every single one of John Waters' feature films, and I grew up just loving her. I mean, Divine in the discovery of John Waters, as well as Mink Stole and Edith Massey and all the Dreamlanders, it really changed my life. But especially Mink, like there's something about Mink's dialogue delivery that really rivals Divine's in many ways, where I just, I was obsessed with her lines. And so when she agreed over 20 years ago to come and do Midnight Mass in San Francisco, it blew me away. She came and did the show. And then ever since then, we've been doing some version of a show together for years. And over the years, it became more and more formalized. And then eventually it became this show called Idol Worship, where now it changes. If you saw Idol Worship, I don't know, 7 years ago when we did it, it's probably different now. But we sing songs and tell stories. And, I basically designed the show to be for the John Waters super fan who loves these movies and loves Mink Stole. And it's the kind of show that is made by a fan for fans. If you go see Mink and her band, they're amazing. They're fabulous. And they're going to entertain you, but she's not going to tell you what it was like cussing out Kathleen Turner, so this show, you get all the tea, all the dirt, she and I, we do a duet to Female Trouble. It's really fun. And so, we will be bringing it back out in 2025. We're going to announce some new cities. This year, we did a lot of northeastern cities, and then we did the Pacific Northwest, including some of Canada. And now we're wrapping just with this one-off show in Palm Springs on November 1st and 2nd. But then next year, we're going to come back. So if you get a chance and we come to a city near you and you like, drag and John Waters movies, I would recommend you check us out.
I'm gonna be there in Palm Springs. I am getting my tickets.
Amazing.
I'm gonna be there in Palm Springs. I'm so excited. I was gonna keep it a secret, but the cat's out of the bag.
Amazing.
So I'm
Have you
gonna
been
see
to
you
Palm
guys.
Springs before?
Never.
This will be it's Pride weekend. So there'll
Yes,
be,
yeah.
lots going on. In fact, actually, like there's going to be a lot of good drag. So we're on Friday and Saturday, but I don't know if you saw, but like Jackie, Coco, Varla, and Sherry, they also have their show in town the same weekend. So you will have no shortage of cool stuff to do. Not to
Yeah.
mention, barebacking.
Oh, that's, if there's a glory hole, sign me up. I mean,
Oh, there are,
um,
trust me. And
well,
you will be fucking chicken in Palm Springs. Hopefully you are, into older guys.
I'm into, you know what? They don't even have to be alive.
Well, then Palm Springs is perfect.
Well, Peaches, it has been a great honor and an absolute pleasure and privilege of mine to sit down and discuss everything that we talked about today. Where can everybody follow you, find you, support you, and join the cult?
The best place to go is peacheschrist.com. That's where you can access our Patreon if you really want to join the cult. That's where we have all sorts of archival episodes of many things that I've done over the years, as well as all my short films, including Jizzmopper. And then of course I'm on I'm on all the social media that you would expect, except that I did cancel my Twitter account when it became X because I hate him so much that I just left. I left the platform. So I'm no longer over there, but I'm kind of at the other ones. And then if you're specifically interested in learning more about my immersive haunted attraction, it's terrorvault.com. So those are the two places to find me.
Thank you so much, Peaches Christ. Everyone, please give a round of applause to the one and only Peaches Christ. We'll be right back. Huh. This thing really does read like stereo instructions. Oh well. Well, everybody, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the show as much as I have. Thank you again to Peaches Christ for joining us here in the Velveteen Coffin on the inaugural episode of the Pristine Decay show. Now that the cat is out of the bag, I can officially announce that I will be in LA on October 31st. That's right, Pristine Decay is going to have her very own Hollywood Halloween. So won't you join me when I unravel all of the shenanigans that I'll be getting into out on the West Coast, and my review of Idol Worship with Peaches Christ and Ming Stahl. Thank you so much for joining me here in the afterlife, and until we meet again, stay decayed.